Welcome to PM Now, the project management podcast of Erste Group IT. My name is Patrick Sabo and I will be your host. Today, we'll be talking about motivation, one of the most important soft skills which a project manager needs to bring to daily work. And due to the current COVID-19 outbreak, when the environment is changing so dynamically from office work to home working style, this is even more important. So I'm happy to welcome our guests, project managers, Filipka Nikolova, who moved from HP Bulgaria almost 4 years ago to run regulatory banking projects for Erste Bank and is responsible for keeping the positive spirit in her teams.
Hello, Patrick.
Alejna Alija, who spent the past 4 years working mainly in the business intelligence area and currently is leading a project about monitoring and data visualization.
Hi, Patrick. Hi, everyone. Really nice to be here.
Georgi, Kalojanov, who has 15 years of experience with banking projects in Austria and CEE. He's in Erste since 2013.
Hello, Patrick. Thanks for having me.
And Vasco Zeller, who joined Erste Group IT as an intern 5 years ago and currently is leading projects in the risk models area.
Hello, everyone.
So once again, welcome, guys. And I would maybe start my first question with some general insights into motivation. Alejna, what is, in your opinion, motivation and why is it important?
Well, Patrick, for me, the notion of motivation would be that in some form it is, let's say, art. Or when we are more technically speaking, this would be maybe a tool that we managers use to promote productivity in our teams. Motivation is an internal factor that drives or stimulates the wanted desire in people in order for them to be more interested, committed, or successful in, let's say, their job or even attaining goals within the project. I like to hear a lot of podcasts and I've heard a lot of experts and even experienced this myself that project managers do plead guilty of not putting focus on team motivation 100%. I would say we're not supposed to leave team motivation to chance or fate, but rather really take the time to think about it and also get to know our team and plan how we will keep them motivated. Because just as we expect work to be done on a daily basis, our team expects the positive energy in form of motivation as well in return. What I'm trying to say is motivation is keeping that spark in the team on, whether this is through keeping clarity in the project, having them reassured, taking care of their growth and their career, giving them variety or challenges, even praising them for the small milestones that they reach. But most importantly, I think it's important to give the team this sense of belongingness.
Okay, Alejna, and at what point of time you know or you recognize the motivation in your teams?
How would I recognize that the team is motivated? I would definitely say that it is the moment that they take pride of the work that they do or they promote the project outside the team. That is when I know that this particular individual has reached the point where he associates himself with the work and project and feels that he belongs to this group. And this is, I think, the Holy Grail.
I believe that there is no doubt that people feel good and motivated when they demonstrate team care and willingness to support in any topics, even such that they are not 100% experts on.
For me, the big topic here is that when people care, when they show they care, and then we see that they're really engaged, they show initiative, they would like to help each other. This is how I recognize they're motivated.
I can jump in here a little bit. I think for me, it's very clear when we have a motivated team as PM, because as a PM, if you have someone in your team who's not motivated, you basically have to push them around a lot more. You never have to push people around if they are motivated. Motivated people, motivated team members are independent workers. They are engaged. They are more pleasant. For me, I have to say it's like almost black and white when people are very motivated or not. And you definitely notice if I have to work a lot harder, then possibly one of the root causes is the lack of motivation in the team.
Okay, so let's say you have recognized the motivation in your team, but how could you improve or maintain the motivation in your teams?
Yeah, I believe that or it's actually a personal experience already, before we focus on improving the motivation, we need to make sure that we have established one. And for that, we need to invest a certain effort. And this is a constant effort. And if I may share my personal experience, what it works for me is to get to know the personality of my team members. Knowing some of their stories is on one side, making them feel that I understand them, even if I'm not going through the same concerns that they may face. And on the other side, this helped me to easier step into their shoes anytime. And this gives us the whole team common feeling of empathy and team support.
I was once very lucky to have a very, very motivated team, highly motivated, really engaged, and so on. And this was a very different experience. Not to say that all my teams are not motivated, don't get me wrong. But at one point, I had to understand that it was a different mode of being to keep them motivated. I didn't have to work to motivate them. I had to work to keep them motivated. And this was a different thing. It was a different approach. Of course, you still have to work hard on it. Motivation is still on your mind, but it's a different approach. The tools you have to use and the approach you use was a little bit different. So definitely I would say you have to be attentive if you need to increase the motivation in your team, or if you need to maintain independent, engaged team members, if you need to maintain them at that high level. Those are two different approaches, I would say.
To relate to the keeping a very motivated team still motivated, I need to add, or I believe the same applies more or less when it comes to longer projects. This can be an extra challenge in particular because of the following two reasons. First one is people tend to like variety, so not do the same thing over and over again in the project. The second one is people can start to feel stuck if they're already experts in a subject matter and a longer project is not giving them any more challenge. So question is how to deal with this. I would say, again, I would put the accent on fostering more belongingness. We as people like to feel that we belong or associate ourselves to another group. Let's call this group a tribe. And this we see everywhere, as with football fans, Samsung fans, Apple fans, Game of Thrones fans. So people like to feel associated to something, or that they belong to a social group. So I would say take the opportunity to create this kind of a tribe within your project, and then slowly aligning it to, project goals or company goals. So when you have that tribe, you need to invest time to nurture it, but also give the people some intellectual appealing, work on their self-esteem, and maybe also help them in their careers. Example is, if you do have an irreplaceable guy in the project, why not let him know about this? Why not praise him in front of the team and give him the chance to maybe have this own fan base within the project of his? And this is exactly what happened in one of my previous projects. There was a very senior expert that somehow was not giving his full potential. And this was visible to everyone, that he was not giving his full potential, because it took us time to actually realize that he just wanted to be more of a mentor and advisor to the less senior team members. And after we gave him this opportunity, not only him, but kind of the whole team flourished with the knowledge transfer and exchange of ideas. So I would say really take the time and get to know your team and provide to them what their source of motivation is.
So one of our goals is to create a highly productive and highly performing environment, and communication plays a big role in this. Keeping everybody accountable and also giving recognition for the good results. Because when people go the extra mile and it's seemingly unnoticed, it can be really demotivating. And they start asking themselves, why do I need to do all this? I mean, nobody cares. And then the top performers start comparing themselves to the average one. So it's really important that the good effort is being recognized and encouraged. And then it starts working the other way around. Everything goes better. So my rules are positive feedback only when it's due, but don't miss an occasion. Even the small things matter. And give positive feedback in front of everybody, but give negative feedback personally. And here I would like to ask the round, how do you give feedback? When do you give feedback? Because obviously at the end of the project it's a little bit too late. It doesn't help for the project. So I'll be really interested about your experience here.
Yeah, this is all about daily communication. If we establish, and this is how I do with my team, we do establish a very honest and open discussion on a daily basis. And I certainly try to make them aware that anytime I feel something that it's not going well, I'm not afraid to go there one-to-one, just share or just ask question, how are you, what's going on? I just noticed on today's meetings certain behavior, what is the reason about that? Or in such one-to-one talks, I'm also provoking people to also share their feedback towards my work and my communication approach to them.
I would definitely agree with Filipka. So this is actually a quite hard of a task to do, to maintain this openness, because not everyone is comfortable to give both positive and especially negative feedback. So I will relate to what Filipka said. Basically, I try to always put myself in front of them. So I'm the one requesting feedback, and this somehow makes it a bit more relaxing for the other side.
Right, and here I think it's very also to add to what you, Alejna, said, that and also to your previous talk, it's to respect the differences between people, because indeed some may be fine with this transparency, but some of them may need more time, because there are a lot of people who are more introvert people. They need more time in order that you win their trust, so they can be open. So this time we need to give them, and we need to respect that they need certain period.
I completely agree with Alejna and Filipka about having to do this daily and and building this relationship. It's definitely on a daily level. We touched a little bit on negative feedback. This is something that I personally find very challenging. So I like to think that I'm very generous with positive feedback and that I acknowledge, but it's very difficult for me to give negative feedback and going into conflict. But this is a whole other discussion, but I definitely want to stress that it's absolutely has to be done. It's a constant thing. And also to touch on what Georgi said, not to do it at the end, which you see this happening quite a bit, but rather do this on a daily basis, even for the little victories, like good job on this document, that email was really well drafted, you led that meeting really well, or really the small things. I think in the end they probably add up to more than one big thing in the end.
Yeah, right.
Another big area is the work itself. One factor is the meaningfulness of the work. So why is it important? Why does their work matter? Because it's easy to get lost in a big corporation as a bank, and you don't see the direct outcome of the work. So it gets sometimes you get really lost. And my answer to that is first understanding and communicating the pain points and the problems that we're solving. And then bringing the people together. Who is it important to? Who is your business partner? Why are we helping him? And then building this personal relationship, building this personal, bringing people together. And I think this really helps.
All right. This leads me to another question. What do you think is a misconception or a mistake when it comes to motivating others?
If I may start. So for me, the idea of financial incentive is the best motivation driver is kind of a misconception. We can all agree that money is certainly a motivator, but not always the prime one. Some people are motivated by money, some by recognition, and some by knowing what Georgi was saying until now, the meaning or the why this person is doing a certain task or a certain job. So everyone ticks in a way differently, and every case is particular, and this does not always leave the space that money or the financial incentive is always the right answer.
I think one big misconception that would happen, this touches a little bit on the financial aspect. I've been a part of projects which were extremely challenging, especially in terms of the timeline, with very fixed regulatory deadlines that we really could not cross, and this resulted in really long hours in the team. It was really bad times, and at that point, there was a decision by the management to establish a bonus. So we're touching now on the financial aspect of this, to establish a bonus at the end of the project. And I have to say, I'm sure the people that, I'm sure the bonus made the team very happy by the time this happened. But I really question to what extent the promise of that bonus at the end of the project, to what extent this would have really motivated the people on that hard time. I can't imagine that our team was not working through the night and thinking, oh, but there will be a bonus in the end. The real source of motivation was a bit back to what I was saying before, the day-to-day, let's just get to this goal or to that goal. Good job on that. We can improve in here. So really the little things, much more so than one big activity in the end or one big recognition in the end, which are also important, don't get me wrong, and people should be rewarded. And you can't always reward them, on a daily basis. But people should be rewarded and recognized. But the real thing that motivates and drives people, I think, is happening on a much smaller intervals than one time and at the end.
Yeah, to support what the colleague said, indeed, also not good practice is that the motivation is boosted only when the project is stuck, or when we see a person who is obviously demonstrating a demotivation.
I think that one of the bigger misconceptions is that is very little in the power of the project manager. How can he or she influence the outcome of the others compared to, for example, the line managers? I mean, we can neither change the salaries or promote or fire, but then again, these are things that, as discussed, I mean, they work only on the short term. And a lot of the motivation comes from the intrinsic factors. So it's the work itself, if it's interesting, challenging, meaningful, and that the environment is safe and positive and caring. And all these are things that the project manager can influence. So for me, that's a little bit of a misconception here, misinterpretation.
Absolutely, yeah.
Absolutely. But now I would like to touch a bit of the spring 2020 circumstances. So all that we've been discussed so far, is it still applicable to the current situation?
With the current lockdown and everybody at home, this situation is challenging for many colleagues, and it would be easy to get frustrated and demotivated. So it is even more important now to think about the team's well-being and to try to adapt the project culture to the new way of work.
I can share my positive experience during this period, which is the new normal and still for many people challenging time. In my project, which is running in a forming stage and phase since months, the home office situation actually is having a very positive effect on the delivery. What we only adjusted is we changed to daily stand-ups and more often checks on the open issues and topics, with the clear message, of course, that this is not about lack of trust or micromanagement, but it's about issue management and on-time support.
So far, I have to say I've had really good results with home office, so I agree with Filipka. So I cannot complain about the situation, but I guess it varies a lot. But to touch specifically on the question that Patrick made about the situation now and what we were discussing before, what I've taken away so far, and of course the situation is very new, I guess for everyone, but what I've learned so far is that whatever was working before, so whatever strategies or tools or approaches you were using with your team before this situation, before this home office, whatever was working, this is what you keep doing times 1,000. Basically, if you had someone who, I don't know, enjoyed kind of an intellectual challenge and more so than being stuck in meetings, for example, we all have team members like this, I think, then you keep doing that and you pay extra special attention that stays in place. If you have someone who's more of an extrovert, who is a communicator and who enjoys exchanging thoughts with the team in order to reach their potential, then you make sure that there are still a forum of some kind, a call, a meeting, a weekly, something like that, to give this person growth. So you have to pay extra special attention in this notion. To take back what I was saying before about doing this daily, the encouragement and that the motivation is sort of a daily effort. Now we don't really have that, right? So I don't see, but I talk to my team more or less every day, and whereas before I could just pass by their desk and say, well done, that's really good. I didn't like this. I like this. So all the time this was happening. Now, you have to actively do it. So you have to think about that a lot more than you were doing before. So I would summarize it as whatever is working times 1,000 now in this situation. You have to be extra careful.
I need to share an observation that I made with my team. We were normally having stand-up meetings every day, and we now are doing the same thing just over a conference call. And I noticed that day by day, these meetings were getting shorter and shorter, so not the usual length of a stand-up. And I noticed that team members were more straight up to the point without the going around the bush or just having whatever random conversation. And it really made me think, is it because we are so busy hiding emotions and feelings from the current situation? Or is it more that we just lack this physical contact of not being able to see each other as we do in a meeting room as per usual? And this is somehow starting to create some sort of a distance within the team. So I thought maybe to add a bit of more of a normality to the situation, I suggested the idea that we would introduce a breakfast stand-up where we just gather for 10 to 15 minutes while having, I don't know, a bowl of muesli or a toast, and we just try to virtually socialize a bit. So talk anything but work, just how everyone is doing and what they do to fill their time. And to be honest, I did see a positive impact, and I felt like the connection jumped back right up. So in these times of social distancing, we really, really need to take care to not only make sure that work is being done, but that also the team feels like it's being heard and it's taken care. And really spending 10 to 15 minutes of talk over breakfast or lunch definitely does not cost much, and it would make sense. At least in my case, it made sense to be made.
Alina, it's very interesting that you mentioned this because I had exactly the same experience. We have a stand-up every 3 days a week, so every other day. And I noticed the exact same thing. So our stand-ups were not very disciplined before, and I would say they previously would last for up to 45 minutes, easily. And there was a lot of discussion, not just about, even about work stuff. So there was a lot of back and forth about work-related stuff, or how to approach this or how to approach that, and so on. Ever since we got sent home, I wish I had charted this somehow, because I feel like they are getting shorter and shorter and shorter, more and more to the point. Which, I mean, in principle, if you look at these very theoretical agile principles, it's better. You want your stand-up to be short and sweet and to the point, and you just discuss what you're doing and what are your impediments, and everybody knows what everybody's doing. And then if there's anything to discuss, you continue. And it sounds good, but I have to admit, to me, I had already thought about something similar, that it was concerning to me that this was becoming so short and there was such a lack of socialization. So definitely it's on my mind, and I thanks for sharing what you did, because I had a very similar experience, and I might copy your breakfast idea, actually.
Now, feel free. I would actually be really curious to see if it's working out same as with my team. But definitely, to relate to the point, yes, we want to have the stand-up shorter. This is the agile principle, but when you're just not used to this being the norm, you can immediately feel that something is missing. So I hope it works for you.
Okay, thanks for sharing your experience, guys. I think we're about to finish our podcast today. So lastly, is there anything else you would like to share with us?
Yeah, I would like to emphasize that we as professionals, we should keep the momentum of the team motivation, even in moments when we as human beings are lacking such due to different working or private reasons. This motivation must stay.
I will just repeat myself one more time in saying that take the time to create an environment where people can contribute very sincerely, and create an environment of feedback where team members also feel safe to give feedback to you.
Thanks for the inspiring words, and thanks for joining our discussion today. I really enjoyed listening to you guys. And I will look forward to welcome you again for a discussion on any other interesting topics. All the best, and I keep your fingers crossed with the amazing job you do. That's all for today. Thanks for listening to our PM Now podcast, and see you in our next episode.